sky was turning gold when the sun began to drop behind the rows of houses. The air smelled like cut grass, and the sound of kids laughing drifted down the street. 17-year-old Malik Johnson walked along the sidewalk with his backpack slung over one shoulder, his basketball tucked under his arm. Practice had just ended, and he was tired but happy. He had made 3 perfect shots in a row, and his coach had clapped him on the back before leaving. His house was only 10 minutes away, and he liked this walk. It helped him clear his head after a long day. He had music playing softly in his earbuds, an old hip-hop playlist his mom said had real lyrics. He smiled, thinking about how she always said that with a teasing look, pretending she knew more about music than he did. The street was quiet except for the buzz of crickets and the hum of cars passing in the distance. Malik liked this time of day. It was when everything felt calm. The glow from the streetlights was just starting to come on, and the shadows stretched long across the road. He reached into his bag to grab his phone and check a message from his mom. She had texted earlier, "Heading home from the office soon. Be safe, love you." He typed back quickly, "On my way. Love you too." He didn't notice the police car until it slowed beside him. The sound of the tires on the pavement made him glance up. The black and white cruiser rolled to a stop a few feet ahead. 2 officers sat inside, their faces half hidden behind the glare of the windshield. Malik hesitated. He had done nothing wrong. Maybe they were looking for directions, he thought. He pulled out one earbud just in case they said something. The driver's window rolled down with a low mechanical whine. "Hey, you. Come here a second," one of the officers said. Malik blinked. "Me? Yeah, you. Step over here." His heart picked up a beat, though he wasn't sure why. He'd seen things like this on TV, and he knew how quickly they could turn bad, even if nobody meant harm. His mom had talked to him about it too many times to count. He walked toward the car, hands visible, just like she taught him. "Is something wrong, officer?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The second officer opened the door and stepped out. "Where are you coming from?" "Basketball practice, sir. At the rec center on 5th Street, Malik said. "Mind telling us what's in the bag?" "My books, homework, and some clothes." The officer squinted at him, then at the basketball under his arm. "You live around here?" "Yes, sir. Just down Maple Drive." Malik pointed toward his neighborhood. The first officer got out too, leaving the car idling. He was taller, older, his face tired. "We got a call about a break-in down the block," he said. "You match the description." Malik's brow furrowed. "Me? What description?" "Black male, teenager, dark hoodie, walking fast." Malik's heart sank a little. He looked down at himself. Black hoodie, basketball shorts, sneakers. He suddenly felt exposed, like his clothes had betrayed him. "I just came from practice," he repeated. "You can call my coach if you want. Or my mom." The officers exchanged a look. One of them took a step closer, his flashlight now shining on Malik's chest. "Can you take your hands out of your pockets, son?" "My hands aren't—" Malik stopped himself. His fingers were wrapped around the strap of his backpack. Slowly, he lifted both hands in the air. "They're out, see?" The air between them thickened with silence. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The officer's radio crackled faintly. Across the street, an older woman watering her garden paused and watched. Her eyes moved from Malik to the officers, then back again. She turned down her hose but didn't look away. Malik could feel the weight of every second stretching. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said softly. "We'll figure that out," the taller officer replied. "You got ID on you?" "Yes, sir." "It's in my wallet." "Can I grab it?" The officer nodded, but Malik still moved slowly, careful to keep his gestures calm and visible. He opened his wallet, showed his school ID, and handed it over. The man studied it for a long moment before passing it to his partner. "Johnson," the second officer read aloud. "You said your address was Maple Drive?" "Yes, sir. Number 442. The first officer looked back toward the car. "You got anyone who can confirm that?" "My mom," Malik said. "She's at work right now." "She's with the FBI." That made both officers pause. The taller one tilted his head, uncertain whether to believe him. "FBI, huh? That's a new one." Malik swallowed. "It's true, sir. Her name's Renee Johnson. She's an agent." The officer's eyes softened for a second, but then the expression hardened again. "We still gotta check, son. Just stay right there." Malik nodded, his stomach twisting. He stood still as they walked back toward their cruiser, talking quietly to each other. He could hear the words, "call dispatch," and See if there's another suspect. The woman across the street still hadn't gone inside. She was pretending to check her flowers, but her phone was in her hand now. Malik didn't blame her. He had seen enough videos online to know that people were safer when someone was recording. The minutes dragged. Malik shifted from one foot to the other, feeling the cool air against his skin. He wanted to text his mom, but his phone was still in his pocket and he didn't dare move. Finally, the second officer came back. You said your mom's with the bureau. What division? Washington Field Office, Malik said quickly. She's a field agent. She handles security cases, I think. I don't know all the details. Uh-huh. The man scratched his chin. And where's she working tonight? I don't know exactly. She said she was coming home soon. The taller officer returned from the car. Dispatch says there's no update on the break-in yet, he said. Might have been a false alarm. So we're just standing out here for nothing? The second one muttered. Malik looked down, gripping his basketball a little tighter. Can I go now, sir? Not yet, the first officer said. We just need to be sure. The sound of a car door closing made everyone turn. A small sedan had pulled up a few houses away. A man got out and began unloading groceries, glancing curiously toward the scene. The neighborhood had grown quieter, as if holding its breath. Malik could hear his pulse in his ears. Every time one of the officers moved, he felt his body tense. He thought of his mom's voice again. If you ever get stopped, be polite, be calm, and keep your hands where they can see them. That advice was supposed to keep him safe, but right now it just made him feel powerless. The taller officer walked a slow circle around him, glancing at his bag again. Mind if we take a look inside? Malik hesitated. Do I have to? Not if you've got something to hide. He wanted to say no, but fear stopped him. He unzipped the backpack and held it open. The officer looked through it. Books, a water bottle, a folded jersey, a few papers from school. Nothing more. See? Malik said quietly. The man nodded, closing the bag. All right. He stepped back, looking a little uneasy now. The second officer returned the ID. You can head home, he said. Though his tone carried no apology, Malik took it, slipping it back into his wallet with shaking hands. He didn't know what to say. He just nodded and turned away, walking down the sidewalk. He could feel their eyes on him until he turned the corner. Only then did he let out the breath he'd been holding. As he walked, he tried to steady his thoughts. He hadn't been hurt. He hadn't even been yelled at. But the feeling that stayed in his chest wasn't relief. It was something heavier, something that said this wasn't the last time it might happen. When he reached his house, he paused at the door, hand on the knob. Inside, the lights were still off. His mom wasn't home yet. He took a deep breath and went inside. Upstairs in his room, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his basketball on the floor. His phone buzzed, a message from his mom. Leaving now. See you soon, champ. He smiled faintly, but it faded quickly. He typed back, okay, Mom. Then he added another line, his fingers trembling just slightly. Something weird happened on my way home. I'll tell you when you get here. He pressed send and set the phone aside, staring at the quiet room. Outside, the sun had disappeared completely, and the world had turned blue. He didn't know it yet, but this night was far from over. Malik sat on his bed for a long time after the message to his mom was sent. The room was quiet except for the faint buzz of the streetlight outside his window. He could still feel his heart beating fast, like it hadn't yet caught up with the fact that he was home and safe. He replayed everything in his head. The police car slowing down, the flashlight in his eyes, the way his voice had sounded smaller than he wanted it to. It was strange how something that lasted only minutes could leave such a heavy feeling behind. Downstairs, he heard the front door open. His mom was home, Malik. Her voice called. You here? He stood up, grabbed his backpack, and walked downstairs. She was standing in the hallway, still in her dark suit, her FBI badge clipped to her belt. Her hair was pulled back neatly and she looked tired, the kind of tired that comes from long hours and heavy responsibility. Hey, Mom, he said quietly. Hey, baby. You okay? She smiled, but the smile faded when she saw his face. You look pale. What happened? He hesitated. Something weird. On the way home. She set her bag down, instantly alert. What do you mean, weird? He told her everything, how the cops stopped him, what they said, how they checked his bag. He tried to keep his voice steady, but his throat felt tight halfway through. She didn't interrupt, just stood there listening. her expression hardening with every word. When he finished, she exhaled slowly. "Did they touch you?" "No, ma'am." Raised their voices. "Not really, just, they didn't believe me." She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "That's enough," she said quietly. "You handled it right. I'm proud of you." He looked at her, unsure whether to feel relieved or angry. "But they shouldn't have stopped me at all." "I know," she said, her voice calm but firm. "That's what hurts the most." She walked to the kitchen, took a glass from the cabinet and filled it with water. Malik followed. She leaned against the counter, staring out the window for a moment before speaking again. "This is why I talk to you about these things," she said. "Because even when you do everything right, someone might still see you as wrong." He nodded, not knowing what to say. She turned to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me. You didn't deserve that. None of it. But you kept your cool. That matters." "Yeah," he said softly. "It just felt, I don't know, like they were waiting for me to do something wrong." "That's fear talking," she said. "Theirs, not yours." They sat together at the kitchen table after that. She told him how she'd seen similar situations in her work. Cases where good people were treated unfairly because someone jumped to conclusions. She said the hardest part of her job wasn't catching criminals. It was seeing how easily trust could break between people. Malik listened, resting his chin on his hands. "Do you ever get scared, Mom?" he asked. "Of course," she said. "Every day. But fear isn't always bad. It keeps you careful. What matters is what you do with it." He nodded again. Her words always had a way of calming him. After dinner, she went upstairs to change, and Malik scrolled through his phone. His stomach tightened when he saw that the neighbor's video of the stop had been posted online. Someone had captioned it, "Teen stopped walking home." For what? There were already comments, some angry, some supportive, some dismissive. Malik read a few before turning off the screen. He didn't want to see strangers arguing over something that had happened to him. A few minutes later, his mom came back down, now in a t-shirt and sweatpants. "You ready for school tomorrow?" she asked, sitting beside him on the couch. "I guess." "You can skip if you need to," she said gently. He shook his head. "No, I'll go." "I don't want to make it a big deal," she smiled faintly. "That's my boy." They watched TV together for a while. Nothing serious, just a cooking show where contestants tried to make desserts under pressure. But Malik's mind wasn't on the screen. He kept thinking about the way the officers looked at him, how quick they were to assume, and how helpless he had felt. He wondered if they would treat him differently if they knew who his mom was. The next morning, the sky was gray and rain sprinkled against the windows. Malik left early, hood pulled up, headphones in. He passed the same corner where the police car had stopped him. The air still felt heavy there, like it remembered what had happened. At school, a few friends mentioned the video. "Man, that was you?" one of them said. "You handled it like a pro," Malik forced a smile. Didn't really have a choice. By lunch, he wanted to forget about it. But during his last class, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his mom. "Stay at school for a bit after the bell. I need to talk to you." Something in the tone made him uneasy. When the final bell rang, he waited in the hallway. 10 minutes later, her car pulled up outside. He got in and she didn't speak right away. She drove past their street and into a quieter part of town, parking near a small park. "What's going on?" Malik asked. She turned to him, her face serious. "I got a call this morning," she said. "About what happened last night," he frowned. "From who?" "The department. They want to talk to us." "Talk to us? Why?" "Because the video spread fast. People recognized the officers. It's under review now." Malik blinked. "So they're in trouble?" "I don't know yet," she said. "But they should be accountable, still." She paused, searching for the right words. "I need you to stay calm when we go in. Be respectful, even if you're angry. Understand?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." She started the car again and they drove downtown to the local police station. It wasn't far, but the silence made it feel longer. When they arrived, a sergeant met them in the lobby. He looked uneasy, maybe even nervous, when he saw her badge. "Agent Johnson," he said. "Thank you for coming." She nodded curtly. "This is my son, Malik." The man shook Malik's hand, his grip light. "We just want to go over a few things," he said. "It won't take long." Inside, they sat in a small conference room. The two officers from the night before were there, looking uncomfortable in their uniforms. Malik's pulse quickened, but his mother's calm presence beside him gave him courage. The sergeant began speaking about procedure, about misunderstandings, about how sometimes reports lead to confusion. Malik barely listened. He kept his eyes on the table, trying not to relive the moment. One of the officers cleared his throat. "Look, kid," he said awkwardly. "We were just doing our job. We didn't mean any harm." Malik looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time. "Your job?" he said quietly. "Your job made me scared to walk home." The room went silent. His mom didn't say a word, but the officer looked away, his mouth tightening. The sergeant shifted in his chair. "We'll be reviewing the incident fully," he said quickly. "You'll both be informed of the outcome." Renee nodded. "I'll be following up," she said firmly. Her tone left no doubt. When they left the station, Malik felt a mix of emotions: relief, anger, confusion. He didn't know whether to be glad that people were paying attention or frustrated that it took a video for anyone to care. On the drive home, his mom finally spoke. "You handled that perfectly," she said. "You spoke your truth without losing your temper." "That's strength." He glanced out the window. "Do you think it'll change anything?" She was quiet for a moment. "I think it already has," she said. "Sometimes change starts with one uncomfortable conversation." That night, Malik lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He could hear rain tapping softly against the glass. He thought about the officers, about his mom sitting there calm and steady while he fought to keep his voice from shaking. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt tired. Downstairs, his mom was still awake, typing something on her laptop. She was writing a report for her office, not about a case, but about what had happened to her own son. Before he closed his eyes, Malik whispered a quiet promise to himself that no matter how small he felt, he wouldn't let this moment define him. He didn't know that the next part of the story would test that promise in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The weekend came, but it didn't feel like one. The house was quiet, yet heavy with thoughts that neither Malik nor his mother could escape. The meeting at the station had left a strange silence between them. It wasn't anger, just a shared tiredness that words couldn't fix. Saturday morning, Malik woke up late. The sound of rain against the window made the world outside look gray and blurred. He sat on the edge of his bed, scrolling through his phone. The video of the stop was still online, now with thousands of views. Some people were calling him brave. Others said he was overreacting. He stopped reading the comments after a few seconds. Downstairs, he could smell coffee brewing. His mom always made coffee the same way, strong with just a drop of honey. When he came into the kitchen, she was already dressed in jeans and a navy jacket. Her badge was clipped to her belt. "Morning," she said. "Morning," he replied, sitting at the table. She poured him a cup of orange juice and sat across from him. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "I'm okay. Just tired of thinking about it," he said honestly. "I get that," she said, taking a sip of coffee. "But I want you to know something important. What happened to you wasn't your fault. It wasn't about who you are. It was about what they assumed." Malik nodded, looking at the table. "You think they'll get in trouble?" She sighed. "That's not up to me, but I'll make sure your voice is heard." He gave a small smile. "You always do." She smiled back, though her eyes stayed serious. "I need to go into the office for a few hours," she said. "Can you stay home today? I want to make sure you rest." "Yeah, I've got homework anyway," he said. She stood, grabbed her keys, and leaned down to kiss his forehead. "Lock the doors, okay? I'll be back later." When she left, the house felt too quiet. Malik tried to do his homework, but the numbers and words on the page just blurred together. His mind kept replaying that night, the flashing lights, the officer's voice, his mother's calm strength. He closed his notebook and turned on the TV for background noise. A local news station was playing a short segment about an ongoing investigation into a traffic stop involving a local teenager. His heart skipped when he heard his own name. He quickly changed the channel. He wanted to forget it, but the story was starting to follow him. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped and the sky had begun to clear. He decided to take a short walk just around the block. The air was cool and fresh, and he needed space to think. As he walked, he saw people he knew, neighbors who smiled politely but didn't say much. Some probably recognized him from the video. Their glances were kind but awkward, as if they didn't know what to say. Halfway down the street, he noticed a familiar black and white police car parked at the end of the block. For a second his stomach tightened, but then he realized it wasn't the same officers. Still his steps slowed. He thought about turning around, but then a car honked behind him, his mom's SUV. She rolled down the window, waving him over. "Hey," she called out. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, walking up. "Just needed some air." "Get in," she said. "I was coming to find you." He climbed into the passenger seat and she gave him that look, the kind only moms have. Half worry, half relief. "You know you're not in trouble, right?" she said gently. "I know," he said, just thinking too much. They drove quietly for a while. The sun peeked through the clouds, lighting up the wet streets. She turned toward the main road, her hand resting lightly on the wheel. "I got another call today," she said after a moment. "About the stop?" "Yes, they're reviewing it officially now. And the department asked me to come down again this evening." Malik frowned. "Do you have to?" "Yes," she said. "They want me to give an official statement. But don't worry, I'll handle it." He looked out the window. "Can I come with you?" She hesitated. "You sure?" "Yeah, I want to hear what they say." She nodded slowly. "All right. But remember, stay calm. Let me take the lead." When they arrived at the station, the parking lot was quiet except for a few cars. Malik followed his mom inside. The same sergeant greeted them, but this time there was something different in his tone. Softer, almost careful. "Agent Johnson," he said. "Thanks for coming back," she nodded. "This is my son Malik." "Yes, of course," the man said quickly. "Thank you for being here." They walked into the same small room as before. The two officers were there again. Malik could tell they were nervous, their posture stiff, their eyes darting between him and his mom. The sergeant cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the footage," he said. "We understand there were misjudgments." "Misjudgments?" His mom repeated, her tone cool. "You detained a teenager on his way home from practice for matching a vague description." "That's not a misjudgment. That's profiling." The room went silent. Malik could feel the tension rise, but his mother stayed perfectly composed. One of the officers spoke quietly. "Ma'am, we were responding to a call." "We didn't know." "You didn't know?" she interrupted softly. "You didn't know that a kid walking with a basketball in a backpack doesn't look like someone who just committed a crime?" The officer opened his mouth, then closed it again. The sergeant shifted uncomfortably. "We're conducting additional training for the unit," he said. "We want to make sure something like this doesn't happen again." Malik watched his mom take a slow breath. "Good," she said finally, "because the next time the person you stop might not be as patient." Her words hung in the air. The sergeant nodded, understanding her meaning. After a few more minutes, the meeting ended. When they stepped outside, the evening sky was painted in pink and orange. Malik exhaled deeply, realizing he'd been holding his breath. "You were amazing in there," he said. She smiled slightly. "That wasn't amazing. That was me doing what I should have done the first time." They got into the car, but before she started the engine, her phone buzzed. She answered quickly. "Johnson." She listened for a moment, her brow furrowing. "Now?" "All right, I'm on my way." She hung up and looked at Malik. "That was work. There's a situation downtown. I need to check in." He nodded. "Can I come?" "You'll stay in the car," she said firmly. "It won't take long." They drove through the city, the lights reflecting on the wet pavement. When they reached the scene, there were several police cars parked outside a store. His mom flashed her badge and spoke briefly to another agent before walking toward the building. Malik stayed in the car, watching. He admired how she carried herself. Calm, focused, in control. He'd always known she was good at her job, but tonight, seeing her surrounded by officers who respected her, he felt proud. A few minutes later, she returned, her expression serious but calm. "All good," she said, getting back in. False alarm. They drove home in silence for a while. The streets glowed under the streetlights. "Mom," he said quietly, "when you walked in there tonight, they all listened to you. Nobody questioned you." She nodded. "That's because of the badge," she said. "It opens doors. It makes people listen, but it shouldn't take a badge to be treated with respect." Malik looked down. "If you had been there that night..." She glanced at him, her eyes soft. "I know," she said. "Things would have been different." He didn't realize then how soon those words would come true. When they got home, the air smelled like rain again. The night was calm, almost peaceful. Malik went to his room and turned off the light, thinking the worst was behind them. But somewhere across town, the story wasn't over. The same two officers were being called out again. Another report. Another suspicious person walking in the wrong place at the wrong time, and in a few short hours, those paths would cross again, and only this time, Malik wouldn't be alone. The night was quiet again, but in a different way than before. It felt heavier, like the air carried something waiting to happen. Malik had fallen asleep early, his backpack still on the chair by his bed, and the glow of his phone dimming on the desk. Downstairs, his mom was in the living room, reading through work notes on her laptop. The sound of the clock ticking filled the space. Every few minutes she glanced at her phone, checking updates from her team. It had been a long week. She wanted nothing more than for tomorrow to come quietly, for life to go back to normal. But peace rarely lasted long in her line of work. Around 9, her phone buzzed again. She sighed, expecting another work message. But it wasn't from her office, it was a neighborhood alert from the local police channel. Suspicious activity reported near Maple Drive. 2 officers on scene. Her eyes froze on the screen. Maple Drive. That was just a few blocks away. She stood quickly, heart tightening. The name of the responding officers appeared in the note. She recognized them instantly. The same 2 who had stopped her son that night. Without hesitation, she grabbed her jacket, clipped her badge to her belt, and headed for the door. Upstairs, Malik stirred at the sound of the door opening. He called out at Mom. She stopped for a second. "Go back to sleep, baby. I'll be right back." He nodded sleepily, not thinking much of it, and turned over. The drive down Maple Drive felt shorter than ever. The streets were dim, lined with quiet houses and trimmed lawns. When she turned the corner, she saw the flash of red and blue lights bouncing off the windows. 2 police cars were parked at an angle, and a few neighbors stood at a distance, whispering. Her instincts sharpened immediately. Something didn't feel right. She parked her SUV a few feet away, stepped out, and scanned the scene. 2 officers stood near a teenager who looked terrified, his hands raised halfway in confusion. He was standing near a bike, a grocery bag lying on the ground beside him. It was happening again. Her voice cut through the night, calm but firm. "Officers, what's going on here?" Both men turned at once. It took them half a second to recognize her. One of them stiffened. "Agent Johnson," he said, his tone awkward. We were just—" She walked closer, her eyes sharp but steady. "Just what? Questioning another kid on his way home?" The younger officer stammered. "We got a call. Someone said there was suspicious movement." "And that gives you reason to stop every young man walking after dark?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. The teenager looked between them, unsure what to do. His voice was small. "I was just getting milk for my mom." Renee turned to him, her tone softening. "It's all right, sweetheart. You can go ahead and pick up your bag." He bent down carefully and grabbed it. Her attention swung back to the officers. "I want both your badge numbers," she said evenly. The taller one looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, there's no need for that." "There's every need for it," she said. Her calm was unshakable, but her eyes burned with quiet authority. "You stopped my son last week for no reason. Now you're doing it again to someone else. This is a pattern, and I'm documenting it." The officers exchanged nervous glances. The neighbors had started recording on their phones again. The same woman from before, Mrs. Carter, was standing near her gate, camera pointed toward them. "Agent Johnson, please," one officer said, trying to lower his voice. "Let's handle this privately." She folded her arms. "Privately is what allows it to keep happening. We'll handle it right here." The taller officer stepped forward slightly, lowering his tone. "Look, we didn't mean anything by it. We just got a call." She didn't move. "And did you see him commit a crime?" "No, ma'am." "Did he run?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." "Then why is he standing here scared out of his mind while 2 armed officers question him for walking home?" The silence that followed said everything. The younger officer finally looked down. "We made a mistake," he admitted quietly. Renee took out her phone and began typing. "You'll both be hearing from Internal Affairs," she said. "I'll be filing a report tonight." As she spoke, Malik's voice came from behind her. "Mom?" She turned, startled. He was standing a few feet away, barefoot in sweatpants, holding his phone. "I woke up and you weren't home," he said. "I saw the lights." Her expression softened. "You shouldn't have come out, baby," she said gently. "I was worried," he said, walking closer. Then he saw the officers and froze. They were the same two from before. Recognition flashed across all their faces. The officers looked stunned. One of them swallowed hard, his eyes flicking between mother and son. Malik's mom stood beside him now, her badge gleaming under the streetlight. "This is my son," she said, her voice calm but cutting. "The same young man you stopped last week. You remember him, don't you?" Neither officer spoke. Renee stepped forward slightly. "You looked him in the eye and treated him like a suspect. Now you see him standing next to a federal agent and suddenly you remember your manners." The taller officer's face flushed. "Ma'am, we didn't know." "That's the problem," she interrupted. "You didn't know. And you didn't care to find out before deciding he was guilty of something." A quiet murmur spread through the few neighbors watching. No one moved. The air was tense but still safe, just truth hanging heavy between people. Malik stood beside his mom, feeling the strange shift in power. The same officers who once made him feel small now couldn't even meet his eyes. It didn't feel like revenge. It just felt right. His mom kept her composure. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," she said. "I'm here to remind you that this uniform means something. It means responsibility. It means fairness. It means protecting, not profiling." Her words carried weight, steady, measured, but full of truth. One of the officers nodded slowly. "You're right, ma'am," he said quietly. "We'll make it right." She gave a small nod but didn't smile. "I hope so, because next time it might not end this peacefully." With that, she turned toward Malik. "Come on, let's go home." He followed her to the SUV. The crowd began to disperse. The two officers stood still, their expressions pale and thoughtful. The woman across the street lowered her phone, whispering something to her husband. Inside the car, Malik sat quietly. His mom started the engine but didn't drive right away. The tension began to melt, leaving only a deep, tired quiet between them. "You handled that perfectly," he said finally. She exhaled softly. "I didn't do it to prove anything," she said. "I did it because people need to be reminded of what's right." He nodded, looking out the window. "I think they got the message," she smiled faintly. "Maybe, but one message doesn't fix the system. Change takes time. It takes courage to keep speaking up." They drove home in silence, the sound of the tires on wet pavement the only thing breaking the stillness. When they pulled into the driveway, Malik looked at her. "Mom," he said quietly, "when you showed them your badge, they looked scared." She looked at him with soft eyes. "That's not what I want," she said. "I don't want fear. I want respect, for everyone." He thought about that as they got out of the car and went inside. The house felt warm and safe again. The lights glowed softly, the air filled with that faint coffee scent she loved. Before going upstairs, Malik turned to her. "I used to think your badge made you strong," he said. "It doesn't," she said. "It just reminds people that I am." He smiled, then went up to his room. She stood in the hallway for a long time, her thoughts still heavy. Tonight could have gone so differently. The only thing that changed the ending was that she showed up. Not just as a mother, but as someone who demanded better. Later that night, as the house grew quiet again, Malik lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the officers, about the kid with the grocery bag, about his mom's calm power. He didn't feel scared anymore. He felt proud. Proud of her, proud of himself, proud that he spoke up even when it was hard. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't the last time they would have to stand up for something. But he also knew they would never stand alone again. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, spreading a soft warmth across the kitchen. Malik sat at the table, his head resting on his hand, staring at the steam rising from his cereal bowl. He wasn't really hungry, but his mom always said breakfast helped clear the mind. The night before had been long. After everything that happened on Maple Drive, sleep didn't come easy. He kept replaying the moment in his head. The look on the officers' faces when they realized who his mom was. The shift from power to apology. It was something he'd never forget. His mom came downstairs a few minutes later, dressed for work but without her usual rush. Her hair was neatly tied back, her eyes tired but calm. She gave him a small smile. "Morning," she said, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "Morning," he replied softly. She sat across from him. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between them. Finally, she broke the silence. How are you feeling? He shrugged. I don't know. Kinda weird, I guess. She nodded. That's normal. Last night was a lot. He stirred his cereal slowly. Do you think they'll actually do something about it? The report, I mean. She looked thoughtful. Maybe, maybe not. But that's not the only thing that matters. He looked up. Then what does? She smiled faintly. That we didn't stay quiet. That we showed them what respect looks like. Even when they didn't show it first. He let her words sink in. She had always said the same thing when he was younger. That silence never changed anything. After a moment, she added, I didn't sleep much either. Yeah, I noticed, he said. I kept thinking about how close things came that night. Twice now. She paused, her voice softening. It's one thing to deal with injustice out there. It's another when it shows up at your doorstep. He didn't say anything, just nodded. He could see the weight behind her calm eyes, not anger, just tiredness. The kind that comes from carrying too much for too long. The clock ticked gently in the background. She took a sip of coffee and looked at him. You were brave, you know. You handled yourself the right way. He shook his head. I didn't feel brave. I just felt scared. That's what bravery is, she said simply. Doing the right thing even when you're scared. He looked down again, quietly proud but still uneasy. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Last night, when they saw your badge, they looked afraid, like they realized they messed up. But if you didn't have that badge, do you think they would have listened? Her eyes met his, serious and steady. Honestly? Probably not, he frowned. That's what I thought. She leaned forward a little. But you can't measure your worth by how someone else sees you. That badge doesn't make me better. It just reminds them to look closer. To see the truth they should have seen from the start. He nodded slowly. I wish everyone saw it that way. So do I, she said quietly. They sat there for a while longer, the morning sun now bright across the table. She reached over and squeezed his hand. We can't fix the world in one night, she said. But we can start by living in a way that makes it better. He smiled slightly. You always sound like you're giving a speech. She laughed softly. That's because I mean it. The gentle moment brought back a small peace between them. Later that day, Malik went for a walk around the neighborhood. The streets were calm again. Kids riding bikes, dogs barking from behind fences. It was strange how normal everything looked, as if the night before hadn't happened right there on that same street. As he passed by Mrs. Carter's house, she waved from her porch. Morning, honey, she said. You doing okay? He smiled politely. Yeah, ma'am. I'm fine, she nodded, her expression kind. Your mom's something special. You tell her that, all right? I will, he said, waving back. He kept walking, his mind turning over everything that had happened. The fear, the anger, the relief, it all mixed together until he didn't know how to feel anymore. But underneath it all, something had changed. He didn't feel powerless now. He felt aware, awake. When he got home, his mom was sitting on the couch with her laptop open. She looked up when he walked in. Did you get some air? She asked. Yeah, he said. It helped. She closed her laptop and set it aside. Good, we've got a lot of eyes on us today. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She gestured to her phone. The neighbor's video from last night. It's all over the internet. People are sharing it. His eyes widened. Seriously? Seriously, she sighed. Reporters have been calling since this morning. I didn't answer. He sat down next to her, staring at the phone screen. The thumbnail showed her standing on Maple Drive, her badge in hand and him beside her. It already had thousands of views. That's wild, he said softly. I know, she said, and I didn't plan for that to happen. But maybe it's good. Maybe people need to see it. He watched the short clip. His mom's voice steady, calm, commanding. The comments below were filled with messages of support and reflection. This mom is a hero. She handled that with so much grace. That kid deserves better. For the first time in days, he felt something like hope. He looked at her. You think this will actually make a difference? She thought for a moment. Change doesn't happen fast. But every story like this and every truth people see, it pushes things a little closer. He nodded. Maybe people will start thinking twice before judging someone. That's the goal, she said. Not to fight hate with hate, but to open eyes. She leaned back against the couch, her tone gentle. You know, when I joined the Bureau, I thought I could change the system from the inside. I still believe that, but it's hard. You start to see how deep the problems go. How many good people stay quiet? Why do they? He asked. Fear, she said. Fear of losing jobs, reputation, comfort. But silence costs more than any of that. He looked thoughtful. So what do we do? She smiled. We stay honest. We stand up. And we make sure our hearts don't harden. He nodded, understanding more than before. The day passed quietly after that. His mom went back to her work files and he finished homework at the dining table. The calm felt earned, like they'd fought for it and finally got a moment to breathe.